Hey girls and gals, welcome back to my channel. My name is Taylor and today's video is going to be my most anticipated September 2021 book releases. These are going to be the 8 most anticipated book releases that are coming out in September that aren't sequels or another addition to series that are already out. These are just either debut releases or just brand new novels by authors. I will have all of the book titles and release dates in the description bar below, as well as have the book cover and the release date on screen with me while I'm talking about it. So let's just go ahead and get started. Coming out on September 7th, and this is actually a book that I have already read. I read it last year because it is no longer in print, but it's getting reprinted this month, and that is going to be Certain Dark Things by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. This is so exciting. This was actually the first book that I read by this author, I believe, and because of the runaway hit success of Mexican Gothic, this is being now republished, I believe, by Doerr Nightfire. So this had recently published quite a while ago, stopped being in print because I believe the publisher went out of print, something like that, but now it is coming back with a glorious new cover, and you guys are going to want to read this one, especially if you did enjoy Mexican Gothic or anything by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. This takes place in futuristic Mexico City, where Mexico City is one oasis in a sea of vampires. Vampires have kind of taken over the world in this future, and Mexico City is one of the only safe havens from those vampires. We follow some interesting characters in this one. We follow Domingo, who is a very lonely garbage collecting street kid. He's busy eking out a living when a jaded vampire on the run swoops into his life, and he wants to become kind of a action star and save the day, hopefully get the girl as well, excluding the fact that this girl is actually a vampire. We're also following Hartl, who is this vampire. She is actually the daughter of kind of vampire royalty, and she is running away because her entire family got assassinated by a rival vampire gang. She needs help getting out of the country. She thinks she can use Domingo to help her get out. And then we also follow Anna, who is a cop who is trying to solve this mystery of why there are suddenly so many corpses appearing in Mexico City, which is a city that's supposed to be devoid of vampires. This is absolutely one of my favorite vampire novels. It is so much fun, and what I love about it is there are several different types of vampire. There's so much vampire lore in here. It's very exciting and fun, and our main characters are very flawed and lovable, and I definitely like how it is a human boy and a vampire girl, and that's the dynamic of potentially a relationship, potentially a friendship. I just feel like we don't normally see human and vampire or any sort of relationships being explored that way, where the woman is kind of immortal and the man is immortal. So I really love this one. I'm so excited that it's being republished. You should definitely check it out. If you like vampires, it's September, perfect for spooky season. Silvia Moreno-Garcia is one of my favorite writers at the moment. Next up, also coming out September 7th, we have The Mad Woman's Ball, and this is by Victoria Moss, and this is actually a translated book. So the translator is Frank Wynn, and I believe this is actually in talks to be turned into a movie as well. So that's very interesting. This is a Gothic novel, and the author explores grief, trauma, and sisterhood behind the walls of Paris's infamous Salpêtrière Hospital. This might be an audiobook listen for me just because I am not that familiar with French and pronunciations, so apologies ahead. So this takes place at the Salpêtrière Asylum in 1885, and all of Paris is enthralled to Dr. Charcot and his displays of hypnotism on women who have been deemed mad or hysterical, outcasts from society. But the truth is far more complicated, for these women are often simply inconvenient, unwanted wives or strong-willed daughters. Once a year, a grand ball is held at the hospital. For the Parisian elite, the Mad Woman's Ball is the highlight of social seasons. For the women themselves, it is a rare moment of hope. Genevieve is a senior nurse. After the childhood death of her sister, she has shunned religion and placed her faith in Dr. Charcot and his new science. But everything begins to change when she meets Eugenie, the 19-year-old daughter of a bourgeois family, because Eugenie has a secret and she needs Genevieve's help. Their fates will collide on the night of the mad woman's ball. And it looks like this young daughter might be able to see ghosts, but also might be crazy, or she might just be simply strong-willed. Very interesting, very intriguing. I love a good gothic story, as well as asylums and like the historical way that we've treated people with mental illnesses, and then just not even mental illnesses, but just women and other outcasts of the eras, kind of just shunting them all to insane asylums just for being a little bit different. That has always terrified me. So if this is going the gothic horror route, I have a feeling it's going to be very, very spooky. I'm very intrigued. I don't think I've ever read anything that was translated from French before, so I'm interested to kind of read a French gothic horror, as well as it sounds like this is based on a real place. I don't know if this asylum exists or not. I'll have to check into that, but nevertheless, sounds very interesting. A gothic novel taking place in an insane asylum. I am very intrigued to pick this one up. Next up, also coming out on the 7th, we have The Allconsuming World by Cassandra Khaw, and this is about a diverse team of broken, diminished former criminals who get back together to solve the mystery of their last disastrous mission and to rescue a missing and much changed comrade. But they're not the only ones in pursuit of a big, big secret. The highly evolved AI of our universe have their own agenda and will do whatever it takes to keep humans from ever controlling the universe again. This band of dangerous women, half clone and half machine, must battle their own traumas and a universe of sapient aid ships who want them dead in order to settle their affairs once and for all. So this sounds very, very cool. I've been very into space operas and just sci-fi that's just very out there recently. I just recently picked up the Wayfarer book series by Becky Chambers, and I'm really loving it. This one definitely seems in the same vein, where we're following a group of definitely strange and eclectic individuals all together, coming together to try and figure something out or potentially start a rebellion against AI. Sounds very interesting. It sounds like the very creepy sci-fi sort of rebellion revolution that I'm interested in and that I'm drawn to. So that comes out September 7th. I believe this author also has something coming out in October, November as well. That's more of a horror novel. So interested to see both of these, and I'll definitely be keeping an eye on this author because they definitely sound like they have a lot of books coming out recently or in the near future that are right up my alley. Next up, we have White Smoke by Tiffany G. Jackson. This comes out September 14th, and this is The Haunting of Hill House meets Get Out in this chilling YA psychological thriller and modern take on the classic haunted house story. Now this one, if you're not new to my channel, you know I'm not too big on strict retellings or reimaginings of classics. They're just not the type of subgenre that I normally find myself drawn to, especially when I like the source material. I find myself just not enjoying retellings, and especially ones where I don't feel like there's enough new added to the story. However, this is one that I'm very intrigued by because this is one where The Haunting of Hill House, I do not actually like the original story. I know I'm a horror fan, it's slightly blasphemous to say so, but it's just not my favorite horror classic, nor is it like my favorite of Shirley Jackson's works. However, the TV show The Haunting of Hill House is one of my favorite pieces of media. It's just like a limited edition, limited run series. There's only one season of it, and it's just the complete story arc. Very different from the original. One of my favorite pieces of film of all time. I love it. So this one, I'm interested to go into it because while it is a modern take on the classic, I didn't enjoy the classic so much, so I feel like the potential is definitely there for this one to definitely be one that I'm more interested in. I don't want to read too much more of a synopsis on this one because it is a reimagining of The Haunting of Hill House, and I feel like because I definitely am so picky, not picky, but just I don't tend to love reimaginings, just in part because I feel like when I'm reading the story, I already know the story, so a lot of the suspense for me as a reader is taken away, and I feel like for a thriller and for a horror, that's very important. So I'm just going into this knowing it's Get Out, which is a great, fantastic movie, meets The Haunting of Hill House. I'm very intrigued to see Tiffany D. Jackson's take on this classic. So I'm looking forward to checking this one out. Who knows, hopefully maybe I'll like adaptations of The Haunting of Hill House just better than the original every time. That would be great because this one sounds very good. Next up, also coming out the 14th of September, we have The Lost Girls by Sonia Hartl, and this one, like the title suggests, is about vampires. I love The Lost Boys. It's one of like my favorite comfort horror movies, so when I saw this, I was very excited. So this kind of sounds like a mix of The Lost Boys plus John Tucker Must Die. So this is when Ezra Irving turned Holly Liddell into a vampire in 1987. He promised her eternal love. But 34 years later, Ezra has left her. Her hair will be crimped for the rest of immortality, and the only job she can get as a forever 16-year-old is the midnight shift at a Taco Bell. Holly's afterlife takes an interesting turn when she meets Rose McKay and Ida Ripley. Having also been turned and discarded by Ezra, Rose in 1954 and Ida in 1921, they want to help her and ask for her help in return. Rose and Ida are going to kill Ezra before he turns another girl. Though Holly is hurt and angry with Ezra for tossing her aside, she's reluctant to kill her ex until Holly meets Parker Kincaid, the new girl Ezra has set his sights on, and feels a quick and nerve-wracking attraction to her. So this just sounds wonderful. We are vampires with a hit of 1980s nostalgia, and that's a lot of my buzzwords in one story. It's basically fall now, and vampires for me are all year round. I love a good vampire story, but this one just sounds very wonderful. I definitely don't think that the name, obviously, and like the 80s references are a coincidence, so I'm hoping that it has a lot of nods to The Lost Boys as a movie in terms of this book as a vampire revenge story. It also says that it's very like funny and kind of like a satire as well, so if it plays with some tired vampire tropes and reworks them in like a funny package, I am all for it. Next up, coming out September 28th, we have Summer Suns by Lee Mandelo. So this seems to be kind of a gothic horror, also with some elements of like an academia novel to it as well. So this is about Andrew and Eddie, and they did everything together. They were best friends, bonded more deeply than brothers, until Eddie left Andrew behind to start his graduate program at Vanderbilt. 6 months later, only days before Andrew was to join him in Nashville, Eddie dies of an apparent suicide. He leaves Andrew a horrible inheritance, a roommate he doesn't know, friends he never asked for, and a gruesome phantom with bleeding wrists that mutters of revenge. So this is probably going to be a very dark story, so trigger warnings all the way around. A horror that mentions like suicide and death. Keep that in mind before going into this one. As Andrew searches for the truth of Eddie's death, he uncovers the lies and secrets left behind by the person he trusted most, discovering a family history soaked in blood and death. Whirling between the backstabbing academic world, where Eddie spent his days, and the circle of hot boys, fast cars, and hard drugs that ruled Eddie's nights, the walls Andrew has built against the world begin to crumble, letting in the phantom that hungers for him. The cover, the synopsis, both very haunting, so I feel like this is definitely going to be like a darker, queer, almost sort of like mystery. I'm not sure based on the synopsis if like the phantom with the bleeding wrists is going to be more like symbolism or an actual ghost, so we'll have to see. Either way, it sounds very, very intriguing, and I have heard that it is like a southern gothic dark academia, so very interesting to see this one and check it out later this month. Next up, also coming out the 28th, we have Lakesedge by Lyndall Clipstone, and this is Lakesedge book number 1. First of all, this book cover gives me Crimson Peak vibes, and I'm very into it. But this is a lush gothic fantasy about monsters and magic set on the banks of a cursed lake. Again, I feel like September, this is the month. I keep hearing the words gothic and horror. It's a very exciting month for someone who loves character-driven horror, and also just like darker character-driven stories in general. So this is when Violetta Graceling and her younger brother Adrian arrive at the haunted Lakesedge estate they expect to find a monster. Letta knows the terrifying rumors about Rowan Sylvanen, who drowned his entire family when he was a boy, but neither the estate nor the monster are quite what they seem. As Letta falls for Rowan, she discovers he is bound to the Lord Under, the sinister death god lurking in the black waters of the lake, a creature to whom Letta is inexplicably drawn. Now, to save Rowan and herself, Letta must confront the darkness in her past, including unraveling the mystery of her connection to the Lord Under. So this is the first book in a series. I think it sounds very interesting. Like, it sounds very classically dark and gothic horror, but then we have like gods thrown in there, giving it some fantasy elements. I'm very intrigued. I can't tell whether this is YA or new adult. We'll have to see, but definitely intriguing cover, intriguing premise. I'm looking forward to checking it out. And last but certainly not least, coming out the 28th, we have Cloud Cuckoo Land by Anthony Doerr. This is a historical literary novel, and I don't know whether it's because of the actual premise itself or because of the name, but this reminds me a lot of Cloud Atlas, and I really love that book. So we'll have to see about this one. It's very intriguing. There are 3 different points of view, and there's like a lot in the synopsis, so I'm kind of just gonna go over it very bare bones. But we are following, there's a point of view in 1453 Constantinople, there's a point of view in present day Idaho, and there's a point of view on an interstellar ship that's bound for an exoplanet like decades and decades and decades from now. This is dedicated to the librarians then, now, and the years to come. It's a hauntingly beautiful, redemptive novel about stewardship of the book, of the earth, and of the human heart. So definitely, this is the author of All the Light We Cannot See. It's going to be very literary. I'm sure it is a whopper. It is around 700 pages. So again, let me know down below. This sounds like very thematically like Cloud Atlas, with the very different points of view in very different areas, somehow all being tied in together. Nevertheless, I'm very intrigued by it and looking forward to checking it out. Very different from what I normally read, but all of the similarities to Cloud Atlas, a book that I really loved, kind of has me intrigued. So very interested for that one and for the rest of these books on my list. But there you have it. That is a list of all of my most anticipated releases for September 2021. Let me know down below which of these books you're excited to pick up. And if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, subscribe to my channel for more content from me. Stay safe, stay spooky, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye!